There's someone that had a very serious think before getting married. So serious and so concerned about the decision he was about to make that he wrote a pros and cons list. Charles Darwin, the father of the theory of evolution, was a very anxious and logical man. And when it came to the benefits and pitfalls of marriage, he wanted to make sure he was making the right choice before proposing. Marry. Children, if it pleases God. Constant companionship, object to be beloved and played with. Someone to take care of the house, charms of music and female chit-chat. These things are good for one's health, but a terrible loss of time. Better than a dog anyhow. Not marry. Freedom to go where one likes, choice of society and little of it, conversation with clever men at clubs, not forced to visit relatives and bend to every trifle, expense and anxiety of children, perhaps quarreling. Loss of time, cannot read in the evenings, fatness and idleness, anxiety and responsibility, less money for books, perhaps my wife won't like London. That is a very interesting piece, and I will link the rest of it in the description. But yeah, it was quite interesting. I couldn't read the real manuscript in which Darwin wrote down because it is written in cursive and I can't read cursive in like old paper that is rubbed off because it was also written in pencil form, and pencil, it doesn't last as long as ink does, or ballpoint pen, so that was quite unfortunate. But yeah, that was an interesting read. Another interesting thing I read was Neil deGrasse Tyson's book Astrophysics for People in a Hurry, and I just loved the way he uses ellipses and he tells us how much time has passed as we read the book, which is quite interesting because before reading that, I was a person who was the hugest proponent against using ellipses. I felt like it was a very immature way of writing, a very novice way of writing. But after reading, Neil deGrasse Tyson's book, and just knowing that writing in itself is a venture and you can take your autonomy toward it. If someone says something is immature or is novice or is not as good, you can change that whole trajectory and make your own piece be a testament against what the norm is. And I feel like Tyson, by using ellipses, made me rethink my previous detestfulness on ellipses. So it's very interesting. His writing style was just very engaging and very fascinating. The third thing that I found interesting, a bunch of things on TikTok. TikTok is a very interesting app, not gonna lie, if you're not addicted, I guess, but it's an amazing app nonetheless. I'm reading it from my tablet, of course, and it's just interesting having TikTok on my tablet. I downloaded it earlier before making this video, and just a fascinating thing having TikTok because it's an app that is mostly associated with the rectangle of a cell phone, but now it's associated with a bigger rectangle, which is a tablet. But now let's continue. If you were Satan, this is someone asking ChatGPT. The account name is Brie. So if you were Satan and you wanted to stop a young woman from meeting her potential and fulfilling her life's purpose, how would you do it? And ChatGPT gives a very, very detailed answer. It's just very thoughtful, very realistic. It's like a mirror of what is happening in this society today. So let's read it. If I was Satan and wanted to stop a young woman from meeting her potential and fulfilling her life's purpose, I would target her mind, emotions, and surrounding to create a sense of self-doubt, confusion, and discouragement. My goal would be to keep her stuck, distracted, and disconnected from a true path. Here's how I would do it. Undermine her self-worth. I'd plant seeds of insecurity, making her constantly question her value. She'd focus on her perceived flaws and weaknesses rather than her strengths and potential. By keeping her self-esteem low, she would struggle to believe she deserves success or happiness. Create toxic relationships. I'd encourage her to surround herself with negative, toxic, or manipulative people who drain her energy, undermine her dreams, and discourage her from growing. Whether through unhealthy friendships, romantic relationships, or even family dynamics, these people would keep her from focusing on her goals. 3. Fuel her fear of failure. I'd amplify her fear of failure, making her terrified of taking risks or trying new things. She'd stay in her comfort zone, avoiding the challenges that would lead to her growth. The fear of embarrassment or rejection would keep her from pursuing her purpose. 4. Distract her with superficial goals. I'd shift her focus from her true calling by making her prioritize materialism, popularity, or external validation. She would chase her short-term rewards, money, status, appearance, while neglecting her inner development and long-term purpose. 5. Instill a victim mentality. I'd encourage her to feel like life is happening to her rather than for her. By convincing her that she is powerless in the face of her circumstances, I'd keep her from taking control of her destiny. She'd blame external factors instead of seeing the power she has within herself to change her life. 6. Create constant comparisons. 7. Promote perfectionism. 8. Discourage emotional healing. 9. Foster burnout and overwhelm. 10. Normalize settling for less. 11. Fuel imposter syndrome. 12. Block her connection to intuition and faith. Yeah, and that's the end of the list. And obviously, ChatGPT Classic is saying the summary of what it just, listed out. So, yeah, that was very thought-provoking. And this post has 1 million likes, so that just shows how, it's very, very... It relates to it mirrors what is going on in society right now. So, yeah, it's very fascinating. Another interesting thing I read was actually from Arabic poetry in TikTok again. So this post says it's from, this is a very hard name, Quokka Lover 56. Some Arabic poetry I've been obsessed with recently. To those who haven't given up, love is resistance. I silently wished peace be upon you. How are you doing, you, my whole being? A university degree, 4 books and hundreds of articles, and still make mistakes when reading. You wrote me good morning, and I read it as I love you. This is by Mahmoud Darwish. Again by Mahmoud Darwish says, they asked, do you love her to death? I said, speak of her over my grave and watch how she brings me back to life. I felt like kissing the swords because the glimmer reminded me of your smile. That was amazing. That's an amazing post by, again, the hard name. And it was just fascinating how Arabic poetry was, is an amazing piece. I've never read Arabic poetry. The closest I have is a book called 1,000 Splendid Suns by Khalid Hosseini. It was a fascinating book. We read it in my book club, and it's just an amazing piece, an amazing novel. So, yeah. Dostoevsky's letter after the death of his first child. It was very sad. My Sonia is dead. We buried her 3 days ago. 2 hours before her death, I did not know that she was to die. The doctor told us 3 hours before she died that things were going better and she would live. She was only a week ill. She died of inflammation of the lungs. Ah, my dear Apollon Nikolaevich. My love for my first child was probably the most comical. I dare say I expressed it most comically in my letters to all who congratulated me. I have doubtless been ridiculous in everybody's eyes. But to you, I'm not ashamed to say anything. The poor little darling creature, scarcely 3 months old, had already for me individuality and character. She was just beginning to know and love me, and always smiled when I came near. And now they tell me, to console me, that I shall surely have other children. But where is Sonia? Where is the little creature for whom I would, believe me, gladly have suffered death upon the cross if she could have remained alive? I'll speak of it no more. My wife is crying. The day after tomorrow we shall say our last goodbye to the little grave and go away somewhere. Anna is staying somewhere with us. She arrived here only a week before the little one died. This is so sad. I don't know. This is like one of the saddest things that I've read by Dostoevsky. It's not even like his works, because I've read White Nights, some bit of Crime and Punishment, but I'm yet to read Crime and Punishment fully next year, because next semester I'm having like to read it in my literature humanities class. I love the opening line of Notes from Underground by Dostoevsky as well, but this is just sad. I guess, you know, the sadness of it is also attributed to the fact that it's reality. So there's that. There's this post by an account called I Wrote on TikTok. That's how it looks like. Okay, you cannot see it because of the reflection by the ring light, but it starts off by someone's holding. Okay, I'm going to probably push it on the screen over here. We all have fears. Anele Ihuoma. If the spirits themselves were not afraid, how come they only move about at night? Imminent River. It's an amazing quote. And then there was this one thing, I remade the post. There was this one quote. My friend posted it in her WhatsApp status and I stole it. It's about Isaac's point of view when Abraham and Isaac are going to like perform the sacrifice of killing Isaac. It's on my TikTok and on my YouTube shorts. Take me to the river. So the quote is, Isaac did not forgive his father. When they returned home, he saw in the sidelong glances of his father's eyes that everything had changed under the cold knife that kissed his skin on the mountain. He knew they could never be the same again. You are my father, he wanted to say. So why couldn't you be my father? And I used that as an intro to a story I wrote once again. It's like a stretch of this excerpt, and I wrote it like, you know, retelling that story in the Bible from Isaac's perspective, just to see how, you know, the emotions he was going through. And they start off with like Isaac's, you know, being in his home with his mother Sarah, having breakfast. Then Abraham comes in, he's from like talking to God, and he has a word with his mom. And later on, like they go inside. I just like take, you know, the reader through the whole process of Isaac being sacrificed, but from Isaac's point of view. There was this stand-up comedy as well on like, I wonder how, you know, the ride home between Abraham and Isaac and how that was like, you know. It was like, almost got you, right? Ha 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 ha, Isaac. Good one. You know, just wonder how the relationship was after the attempted sacrifice, you know. Another quote, I also posted it in my TikTok and my YouTube shorts. I extracted it once again from somewhere in the corners of the internet of TikTok. It says, I hope you find people who won't make you struggle to translate your soul's language just for them to understand you. Need I say more? And then there was this amazing article I read, and it was on language, and it was about like this conference that was held, I think it was in Makerere University in Uganda, and it was an African Writers Conference, that's the name. And they were talking about the importance of incorporating languages. Should like African countries continue to use Western languages that were brought by colonialism, or should they now veer off from using Western languages like English and French and start using African languages like Swahili? And there were two huge proponents on each side of the case. So on one side we had Chinua Achebe, and he was pro using Western languages like English, and he says that, you know, that is not a problem, but is a tool for us to like know and liberate Africans more. But on this other side we have Ngugi wa Thiong'o, who is like, no, he's not going to bow to using Western languages, and is going to embrace African languages. And as you can see in later works by Ngugi wa Thiong'o, he's taken up you know, the assertion he made in that conference very seriously, because he wrote books later on that were in his Kikuyu language. So that is a whole dilemma. I'm planning to host a podcast in the future talking about the whole issue of language. It really fascinates me, and I find it to be very interesting. So stay tuned for that if I have time to do that. Finally, I can close off with just amazing things that I wrote in my reflection for my literary class. I started off with a quote that I sort of morphed, It was a quote said by Oppenheimer, Cillian Murphy, in the film Oppenheimer, and I added my own pizzazz to it, and I said it in one of my, in my discussion during class, and I used it as an epigraph of my reflection afterwards. It was just so fascinating how, I loved it, and I just dared, It was like Stephen King when they were having, the 100 best books of the year, and Stephen King nominates one of his books, so I felt like Stephen King, using an epigraph. That is my quote when I was writing a reflection. What my professor, thinks about me right now. But yeah, the quote is, love is like quantum mechanics. It is paradoxical, and yet it works. Sometimes.
What do you know about quantum mechanics?
I have a grasp on the basics.
Then you're doing it wrong. Is light made up of particles or waves? Quantum mechanics says it's both. How can it be both?
It can't.
It can't. But it is. It's paradoxical, and yet it works.
So yeah, and then we have an M dash and then my name after the M dash. So it was pretty bold of me to do that. And I went a step forward, this time less bold, but still very daring, I should say, when I was submitting one of my works, and I had a poem which was also written by myself. I love epigraphs, and so the poem is the epigraph of the work, and it is like a quote by me, but I don't explicitly say my real name. I use my nickname, the name that my sisters call me at home. So, but it says, because love is more than a feeling, it is more than that. Love is the cosmos. Love is warmth. Love is music. Love is God. Then M dash, my nickname. That's the beginning of one of the stories that I wrote, and it's just fascinating. Apart from that, one of the most daredevil things that I did this year was joining the choir. I've been in the choir since I was in primary school. I sang alto in primary school. Went to high school, I sang a bit of alto till I got tired of it. Went to tenor because, yeah, why not? And I came here. I was just like, if you want to sing in 9 lessons in carol, you can join the choir. And I joined the choir, and they sent me an email saying, okay, great, you joined the choir, here's the music, you can download the music here. And I go ahead, download the music. Turns out I'm not downloading the sound of the music, I'm downloading the notes. This is what we had. So this is the book that we were using in the choir, and they sent me literal music symbols. I have no idea of how to read music symbols, and yeah, I know it's just one of the amazing things that I read. I guess I had to teach myself how to understand reading these symbols. I'm not the best. I'm still a very, 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 very in the beginning level. If we have beginners from level 1 to 10, I'm in level -10 at this moment in time. But yeah, so I'm still not very good at reading the symbols, but I think confidence goes a long way, because I went there, I performed together with other people, I sang alto, and it was amazing. And just reading this symbols, it was just an amazing thing to read. And the final thing is from Virgil's Aeneid. This book, we had to read it in the literature humanities class. I detest the book. I don't people talk about Virgil's Aeneid, and they talk about how it is propaganda. It is for me, I feel it's an amalgamation of both the Iliad and the Odyssey, and I just didn't enjoy this book. But I have to hand it to Virgil. The writing in this book is fascinating. It's amazing. It's beautiful. And there's this one line in book 2 of the Aeneid says, "What fire cannot do, the Danaans can." and I love this line so much. It was amazing. I wrote like oof on the line. And what made it so much better was the fact that my professor mentioned it in class, and I was like, okay, so you know, I got a good eye for quotes. That is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you loved it. As you know, I loved making this video. I love reading out quotes. I love, you know, finding deep, amazing, thought-provoking lines on the internet. And you know, it just goes to show how the internet is not so bad as we probably think it is, you know. So don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram at Anjelica Young. You can follow me on TikTok as well if you like that side of TikTok, you know, and if you're that kind of person, because TikTok is, I guess, an amazing app. You can read my blog. It's going to be linked down below. You can join my book club if you want to. Also going to be linked down below. I have a recent article that I posted on triangles and free will, so if you like triangles and if you like free will, I'm betting that you will like my article on triangles and free will. So it's also going to be linked down below, and I hope you have a great day or evening.